Hi, welcome to Easy Exposure, the tutorials about photography. And in today's lesson, we will be talking about filters. And filters are just special pieces of glass or plastic which we put over our lens to create a specific effect. There are different filters which are used for different things. And I decided to break this lesson into 3 videos. In the first video, we will be talking about filters in general and their types based on how they mount on the lens. We will also talk about UV filters. In the part 2, we will be talking about ND filters and their use. And in part 3, we will be talking about polarizers. So let's get started. Based on the way how the filters are mounted on the lens, we can divide them onto screw-on filters, and this is screw-on filter, by the way. And there are also drop-in filters as well as square or rectangular filter systems. Most commonly used are screw-on filters. Those are just simply round pieces of plastic or glass mounted inside a threaded metal ring, which you can simply just screw on in front of your lens. This makes them the easiest kind of filter to use. Though the disadvantage of screw-on filters is that a filter size has to match a specific lens diameter. This means if you have different lenses with different diameters, you will have to buy a separate filter for each of them. Or there is another solution, so-called stepping rings, which are usually much cheaper than the filter itself. There are 2 types of stepping rings, and those are step-up rings, with which you can use bigger filter on a smaller lens, or step-down rings, with which you can use smaller filter on a bigger lens. Those step-down rings are not always recommended because just think about it. You are putting smaller filter on a bigger lens. This means that the smaller filter will not be able to cover the lens completely. The edges of the lens will not be covered. And especially this applies to wide-angle lenses, to lenses with a short focal length. You are risking to get a vignetting in your photo. And vignetting, I hope you know what it is. It's when you get a black edges around your picture. As you can see on the photo, stepping rings are stackable. Let's say you would like to mount 37mm filter on 26mm lens. But you don't have a stepping ring which takes you from 26 to 37. But instead you have 2 rings, one of which will take you from 26 to 30, another one from 30 to 27. So you can stack those 2 rings together and then you can mount your filter. Though remember, it's always better to use as few rings as possible. And also when you're buying stepping rings, always insist on buying the thinnest ones possible, because the closer the filter is to the lens, the better image quality you'll get. Also, most of screw-on filters are double-threaded as well, so you can stack them one on top of another for a stronger effect. The other type of filters are drop-in filters, which are usually used on longer telephoto lenses with very wide front diameters, which makes the production of screw-on filters expensive because more material has to be used to cover this wide front diameter of the lens. This is why they came up with drop-in filters, which are actually located towards the rear end of the lens where the diameter is smaller. So, towards the rear end of the lens, you will find a compartment with filter holder, as it's shown on the picture. Some of these filter holders accept screw-on filters and some use gels. But always check if it's a right filter for a specific lens before you buy it. Finally, let's talk about square and rectangular filters. And to use those, you will need a whole filter system, which consists of filter holder, adapter ring, and filter itself. Filter can be made out of glass or plastic. And the good news is that one rectangular or square filter can be used with many different size lenses as long as you have appropriate size adapter rings. Also, these type of filters can be shifted up and down in a filter holder to fit the scene as desired. This can be especially useful when you are using gradient filter. When you use one of those systems on your lens, most likely the regular hood from your lens won't fit. This is why some of those systems come with a hood. And the most popular are Cokin and Lee. And now let's talk about UV filters and the use. Well, back in the days when we still had film cameras, UV filters were used to protect film from UV light, which could give it a blue color cast. But nowadays, with all the technology, digital cameras, auto-white balance, this does not longer apply. UV filters are kind of useless when you want to use them for UV light protection because it has no influence on the image with the digital cameras. But there are a lot of photographers, including me, who do still use UV filters, but in protection purposes. Because UV filter is just a clear glass which is supposed to have no effect on the image. But if you watch other videos and read some blogs and forums, you might find out that there is this debate between photographers because some of them say that they will never use UV filters on the expensive lenses because it still does influence image quality, and there are some photographers who say that it doesn't, and even if it does, the difference is just not that significant. Well, I do use UV filters with each of my lenses. It just gives me a peace of mind, especially when I'm shooting in the conditions where there is some sand, like on the beach for example, on some water where I can get some water drops on my lens. I just feel more comfortable to clean off the filter than to clean the lens itself. I think you should decide it for yourself, try it out. What I wouldn't probably do is to use some very cheap filter on some expensive lens, because I think that filtered glass might vary the same as the lens glass vary. Depending which lens you have, some glass might be better than other, the same as with a filter. So just try it out. As I said, I like to use it, but it's all up to you.